So Sri Krishna Bhagavan is saying that he who knows the truth knows that it is not him that is eating, it is not him that is walking, it is not him that is sleeping, it is the body that is eating, it is the body that is sleeping, it is the body that is walking. Because he or I am one with the Atman. Like soul needs no food. It is the body that needs food. Shri Krishna Bhagavan then continues saying, the self-controlled one who has mentally renounced all activity dwells peacefully in the city of 9 gates, Navadvara Pure, neither acting nor causing to act. So here Krishna is saying that God, He is not creating an agency that would influence your action, nor He is directly influencing your action. It is one's own svabhava that is doing so.
A Sankarshan Joshi trip.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Sankarshan Joshi trip. This is a chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita series. So today we are at chapter 5, which is Sanyasa Yoga, the yoga of renunciation of action. So I'm back to the Bhagavad Gita series after a really long time. So I did the 4th chapter few months back, and now I'm doing the 5th chapter. So this is not what I intended to do when I started this. I didn't want to take this much gap, but everything happens for a reason, right? At the end of it all, whatever gap that I took, all the things that I experienced, all of the different concepts, and so I was listening to a lot of Ramayana in this gap. I was listening to a lot of stories about Ma Durga, the Devi. So I was listening to a lot of different stuffs, and I'm now coming back to the Bhagavad Gita again, and the perspective has slightly tilted from where I was before. So we all grow, we all evolve, right? So nothing is very too permanent in terms of school of thoughts and philosophies. They keep evolving, right? So one thing with the Bhagavad Gita series, ever since I started to now, one thing that has changed is that whenever I did the Bhagavad Gita episodes in the past, I always presented Bhagavad Gita in a much more philosophical, logical sense, where even if someone who's listening and who doesn't believe in God, it should make sense to them. So I was expressing the concepts in that perspective. But over the period of time, I've realized that without faith, without bhakti, nothing actually makes sense. When you believe a scientific concept, that means you have faith in science as an institution. So without faith, nothing functions. For something to have impact on your life, you need to have faith, you need to have devotion, you need to have bhakti, or else no knowledge is gonna make sense at all. So when I'm listening to someone who's talking about Ramayana, or who's talking about Devi, who's talking about Bhagavatam, who's talking about Krishna, who's talking about Bhagavad Gita, right? There is a immense devotion that is oozing out of them, and that is very contagious, and I've realized that I'm gonna let my guard down a little bit, and I'll express that when you guys are listening to Bhagavad Gita, when I am telling Bhagavad Gita, I immensely have faith on Krishna. So I'm immensely have faith on Krishna and the concept of God, right? So hence I'm doing this Bhagavad Gita series, and I've realized that whenever I put out a small snippet of the Bhagavad Gita series on Instagram, so if you guys want to check me out on Instagram, you can go to a Sankarshan Joshi trip, and so I put reels there, and whenever I put Bhagavad Gita clip there, I see a lot of comments that says Hare Krishna, Jai Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna, and it makes me so happy that all of them are young people, and just looking at their faith and they expressing their faith, it makes me so happy. So I'd like to start this Bhagavad Gita series by saying, without faith, no knowledge, no dharma, no God, nothing actually makes sense. So faith, bhakti is very, very, very important. So I'm just coming out and I'm just saying that out loud. So let's start the chapter 5. Chapter 5 starts with Arjuna saying Shri Krishna that, so in chapter 4, when if you guys haven't checked chapter 4, please do check it out. So in chapter 4 you see a lot of wisdom that Krishna is giving out in terms of how to perceive life, how should one go about acting, and how should one perceive their existence. How seriously should you take your physical body, and when you're acting upon something, how serious should you be in terms of how attached are you towards that action. So there's a lot of wisdom that Krishna provides in chapter 4, right? So chapter 5 starts with Arjuna asking that, you praise renunciation of action, O Krishna, but also the yoga of action. Tell me clearly which is better. So here Arjuna is asking, you say that giving up and renouncing action is good, and you're also saying that performing the right action is good. So Arjuna here is getting confused and is asking, like, tell me clearly, like, which is better. To that Shri Krishna Bhagwan says, right renunciation and right performance of action both lead to the same goal, but of the two, right performance is better. So here let's talk about right renunciation of action. So when you see great sages and saints, gurus from India, for example, let's take Ramana Maharshi for that matter. So Ramana Maharshi, he stayed in his ashram in Arunachalam, and this man almost renounced everything, and he didn't even have ownership of his own body. Like when he was addressing to his body, he talked about his body as a different thing. So every time he got sick, he would say, this got sick, like this body got sick. I did not get sick because I can't get sick because I am the soul. That's the amount of profundity and enlightenment he had. And the next part of the statement is right performance of action. So performing an action right, meaning you need to follow dharma, and any action that you're doing, it should be dharmic in nature, and it should actually uplift your concept of dharma. Like that's how your actions should be, right? And that hence it would be called right action. So when you see Ramachandra, Lord Ram, his entire life was just about performing the right action, not because he wanted to, not because he found pleasure in that. He did those actions rightly because that was the dharma, and he followed dharma. So he always did the right action. So here, people who take the Jnana Marga and who give up on material possession or who renounce actions, so that is one path. And there is other path where you focus on performing an action rightly and in a dharmic way. So both of them lead to the same goal, says Shri Krishna Bhagwan. And then he continues saying that out of the two, performing right action, like the right performance, is the better one. Because so there are very few people in the world who will reach the level of Ramana Maharshi or all the great gurus and saints, spiritual beings who have come on this planet. There are very few people who reach to that level, right? So they have a purpose in their life and they are there to fulfill that particular purpose. And that philosophy might not resonate with everybody, right? So I can come out and say that, you know what, I'm not this body, I'm the soul. I can just say it. But for me to actually believe that are two different things. So I might say that, you know what, I'm not this body, I'm the soul. I can say it and I might believe that is true. But when the scenario presents itself where I see a scorpion, I'm just like scared. So you can make yourself believe that you are that type of person, but reality is different, right? So taking this taking this path is slightly harder, trickier, and it involves a lot of guidance. It's a very different concept, right? If you take Jnana Marga, understanding, implementing, two different things. So but when you take the path of doing the right action, like you see the life of Rama, how he performed actions, what he did in his entire life, you look at that and you try to be that, you try to imitate Rama, you try to be him by doing the right thing. So that's much more easier, and that's, I mean, it's not easy in the sense because it's hard. Doing the right thing is hard. When I say easy, I mean that you can perceive it easily, and when you perceive it easily, you can make yourself implement that. So that's what I mean. Here Sri Krishna says that out of the two, right performance is better. Sri Krishna Bhagavan then continues saying, he is to be considered a perpetual sannyasi who neither hates nor desires. O mighty armed, being free from the pairs of opposites, he is easily released from bondage. So here Krishna is saying a perpetual sannyasi is someone who neither hates nor desires. I mean, as simple as this statement is, it is so hard to not desire for something, right? So if you are single, then you desire for an ideal mate, right? When you're hungry, you desire food. When you get a feeling of lust, then you seek things that you desire, things that would fulfill that aspect of what you're feeling, right? And suppressing the desire, not having desire, it's super hard. And the second part here was he who neither hates. I mean, isn't it so not hating someone, it's the hardest part, right? Because we get succumbed to our emotions so easily that as much as, I mean, when you love someone, you might for few minutes not think about them, but when you hate someone, if you're angry, if you hate a object or if you hate a person, that's all you're thinking about, because hatredness require a lot of investment of your energy, right? So you always think about that. And Sri Krishna Bhagavan, in the second part of the statement, he says, be free from the pairs of opposite, like pleasure, pain, good, bad, happy, sad. Be free from these pairs of opposite. That means that any scenario comes in your way, you should be seeing that not as a positive thing nor as a negative thing. Imagine the state that you should be to actually see world that way. So if you see things that way, then you are released from this bondage. So the bondage could be life, it could be you're clinging on to objects, it could be anything, you'll be released from bondage. Shri Krishna then continues saying, it is child's talk, not the view of the wise, that the paths of knowledge and action differ. He who firmly established in one obtains the fruit of both. So here, so Arjuna, this chapter starts with Arjuna asking which of the two paths is better, right? So he's indirectly saying that, it's child talk if someone thinks that, one is better than the other. And he who is established in one obtains the fruit of both. It's like two different rivers, but they all meet at an ocean, right? So no matter what path you take in yoga, you're gonna reach the same part, same destination of being God realized and being one with the God, right? Sri Krishna Bhagavan then continues saying, the same state which men of knowledge attain is attained also by those who perform right action. He who sees two paths as one, it is who sees right. But it is difficult to attain renunciation, O mighty armed, without the yoga of action. A wise man who practices the yoga of action soon attains to Brahman. So the first part of the statement, Shri Krishna Bhagavan is saying, it is difficult to give up on certain actions, like to renounce certain things, without the yoga of action, which is following your dharma and doing, which is following the right action path. So you cannot renounce objects without being on the path of doing the righteous thing. Like the both are very intertwined and interlinked. And then the second part of the statement was that the wise man who practices the yoga of action soon attains to Brahman. So it's not just that you understand Bhagavad Gita. It's you put that in practice. Like that's more important, right? So whatever you learn, if that's not being implemented, then did you really understand that? Then you cannot call yourself a wise man. So hence it makes sense when Krishna is saying that a wise man who practices the yoga of action, he attains Brahman soon. He whose mind is purified by that yoga, who controls himself and is master of his senses, and who knows his self to be one with self of all, is unaffected even though engaged in action. So here, just think about it in a perspective where Krishna is trying to combine two paths, which is having a right understanding, having jnana, and performing the right action. So here is trying to merge both of them. Here you can see, he who controls himself and is master of his senses, and he is one internally with the God, like he is always with the eternal Brahman, then he is unaffected even though he is engaging in action, which means that internally he is in a place where he is always in one, he is always in union with the God, but externally he is doing actions. So here he has the understanding of God because he is one with him, and externally he is doing the actions, Then Shri Krishna Bhagavan then continues saying, he who knows the truth does not consider that it is he doing anything while seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, walking, sleeping, breathing, excreting, or opening or closing eyes. He considers only that the senses are contacting the objects of the senses. So Shri Krishna Bhagavan is saying that he who knows the truth knows that it is not him that is eating, it is not him that is walking, it is not him that is sleeping, it is the body that is eating, it is the body that is sleeping, it is the body that is walking. Because he or I am one with the Atman. Like soul needs no food. It is the body that needs food. So your body is interacting with the thing that it needs to sustain itself. So when your body is hungry, your body seeks food. When your body is tired, it seeks sleep. So when you want to get something, then your body walks, right? If you want to get somewhere, your body walks. So that is your body interacting with a specific thing that is going to fulfill a specific need for the body. He who, relinquishing attachment, resigns his actions to the Brahman, remains untouched by sin like a lotus leaf by water. When you leave the result, so in previous chapters, Sri Krishna Bhagavan has said that focus on the action and not on the fruit of the action. So when you're doing that, you're giving the result, you're letting the result be decided by God, right? So hence you are resigning your actions to Brahman. So anything that you do, just dedicating it to him, just resigning those actions to him. You're doing it because you want to dedicate that action for him. a person with this mentality is like a water, it is like a lotus in a water. So if you see lotus, it stays in water, but there is no water on the lotus, so there is a waxy texture on the lotus, right? If you put a drop of water on lotus leaf, the water just slips and it falls back into the pond. The water does not stay on the lotus leaf. So it's like you are in this ocean of samsara. So but you are not affected by it. So it's like lotus being in water is not affected by water. Renouncing attachment, yogis engage in activity with the body, the mind, the intellect, or simply the sense organs for the sake of self-purification. So once Krishna gave the example of lotus being in the water and not being affected by water, Sri Krishna Bhagavan then continues saying that while renouncing attachment, yogis engage in activity with body, mind and intellect for the sake of self-purification. So they're using intellect, mind and body in the process of realizing God. Like they're putting their effort and they're using these three entities for that. So what do? I'll just talk about myself. So I use this body just to fulfill the needs for this body and invest time and efforts in pleasure, right? Like that's all we do. What do? If we want tasty food, we go eat tasty food. And if we do a 9 to 5 job to make money, and we invest money to build a certain lifestyle for ourselves so that physically we are in a much more comfortable place. So going back to lust, I keep talking about lust a lot because when you look around, there is so much of provocative things and there's so much of explicit content out there in the internet free for people to use, which is so much more easier to access, right? Even for kids or adults, anyone, like regardless of the age, it's so much easier to access it. So whatever time and effort that we have, we are putting it just to feel that momentary gratification of pleasure, right? So that's what we invest our mind, body and intellect to do that. We do an action with our body and we use our intellect to justify that action. So every time you go watch explicit content on the internet, you use your intellect to justify that action by saying it is natural. Like everyone does it, so I am doing it. So you are using your intellect to justify your bodily action. So hence your manas would eventually deteriorate, right? Like it eventually gets polluted and it will take you to a path which is very, very, very far from realizing God. So that's what we use our body honestly for. And so here Krishna is saying that use these three things. Like a saint or a yogi, he uses these three things, manas, mind, intellect and body, towards realizing God, being in union with the God and experiencing eternal bliss. He who is integrated in union attains abiding peace, relinquishing attachment to the fruits of the action, while a non-integrated is bound by attachment to the fruits of the action through desire. So here let's talk about the first part of the statement. He who is integrated in union attains abiding peace, relinquishing attachment to the fruits of the action. So being union in the sense internally you know that you are the soul and you have realized that and you are being a part of that. So internally you are in union with the God and you have relinquished attachment to the fruits of the action. So here, if you are in that state, this would be the result where you're not attached to the fruits of the action. It could also be vice versa, right? So the more you perform actions, dedicating it to just for the action and not for the fruits of the action, then you would reach to a place where you would be union with the God, right? Vice versa. And the second part of the statement here, it says, While a non-integrated, a person who is not realized that he is one with the God, his soul is the eternal God, he is bound by attachment to the fruits he's attached to the fruits through desire. So clearly here we know who we are. So here is saying, Krishna is saying that if you're bound by desire, like if you are attached to your fruits, then you have a lot of desire in you, and you know that that won't lead you anywhere. And the first part of the statement, it says that someone who is a wise, someone who has realized God, his actions would be in a way where you are not attached to the fruits of the action. Shri Krishna Bhagavan then continues saying, the self-controlled one who has mentally renounced all activity dwells peacefully in the city of 9 gates, Navadvara Pure, neither acting nor causing to act. So let's just break down this statement a bit. The self-controlled one who has mentally renounced all the activity. So here Krishna is saying you have mentally renounced, which means you have given up on the fruits of the action, right? So mentally you have given up and you have renounced the action, and you are dwelling peacefully in this city of 9 gates. So which is the city of 9 gates? So human body, we have 9 openings, right? So here Krishna beautifully is referring our body to Navadvare Pure, so a city of 9 gates, and he is neither acting nor causing to act. So he's just being very observant of his body. It's like you're playing a YCT game where you are observing yourself as a third party, where you are peacefully sitting in this city of 9 gates, and you are not creating reasons for this body to act, and you're not creating reasons for this body to not act. You're just being observant about it with a sense of detachment, right? Shri Krishna Bhagavan then continues saying, the Supreme Self, the Prabhu, the God, creates neither agency nor action for people, nor unites action with its fruit. It is one's own nature or svabhava which does so. You know, when I read this statement, it just hit me so hard, it just changed my entire reality. Because when good happens, we say that God is doing that. When bad happens, we question God, right? Like, with your presence, why is bad things happening here? So normally that's how people who have faith in God, that's how they talk, right? But when I read this, here Krishna himself is saying that the God does not create reasons for people to act, nor does he influence the action that people are doing. He also does not bring fruits to their action. So it is not God who is doing this, it is one's own svabhava that is doing that. It is one's own innate nature that is doing that. So if your svabhava is good, then you will get fruits for your action. If your svabhava is bad, then the fruits that you get for your action would be very different. That would be very detrimental. So here Krishna clearly is saying that God is not creating a certain intention in you to act. God is not making you do something. It is your own svabhava that is making you do something. Ravana, he has a asura, demonic svabhava. That's why his actions has always been demonic. But when you see Rama, his svabhava is very, very, very pure. So you can see how it's reflected in his actions. So here you can clearly see that if your svabhava is good, good things will come to you, good things will happen. If your svabhava is bad, then bad things will come to you. It is not God that is doing that. It is you, your own self doing that. So if someone who is praying God external, they're chanting God's name a zillion times a day, but their svabhava is bad. They're always jealous of other people. They always want bad things to happen to other people. Then they'll get bad fruits. then they won't get good fruits. If someone who is not chanting God's name at all, but he has a very good svabhava, he has a very good nature, then good things will come to him. It is dependent on one's own svabhava. So, when I read this, I started to question, then why should one go to a temple then? Why should one pray God? If it is my own svabhava, then if God is not bringing actions, if God is not influencing my actions, then why should I pray Him? Why should I go to Him? And then I realized, if you want your svabhava to change, you need God's blessings. You need God's intervention to change your svabhava. So once your svabhava changes, your action changes, your fruits change, fruits to your actions change, everything change. Shri Krishna Bhagavan then continues saying, the universal self, the Prabhu, he takes on neither evil nor good of any man. Wisdom is unveiled by unwisdom, therefore men are deluded. Krishna is saying that God neither takes on evil form nor does he. Here Krishna is saying God does not bring evil out of any man, nor does he bring good of any man. Like he's not influencing them. Like I said previously, it's one's own svabhava, right? So here, when wisdom is thrown out through and unwisdom comes into play, where jnana is being pushed out by ajnana, then men would get deluded. When we look around, we know what deluded men do, how deluded men behave. We know, we clearly know. When we are listening to Gita, if you are listening to Gita, then when you look around people, you exactly know people who are in line with what Krishna is saying, and you clearly know people who are not in line with what Krishna is saying. So people are not in line with what Krishna is saying because they are deluded. They are deluded because ajnana is taking prominence over jnana. But here, the solution also Krishna says. Shri Krishna Bhagavan then continues saying, but in those whose ignorance is destroyed by the knowledge of the self, that knowledge, like sun, reveals the Supreme. So, when you are on a path of realizing the God, when you are in path of realizing the self, in this process, the ajnana would be casted out and knowledge, jnana, would be shining like a bright sun. Shri Krishna Bhagavan then continues saying, mind fixed on that, self merged in that, directed and devoted to that, their sins will be dissolved by wisdom. They go whence there is no return. They go to a place where there is no return. There is no return meaning there is no rebirth. You are free. The wise sees with an equal eye a learned and a modest Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and an outcast. This is the beauty of Bhagavad Gita. So here Krishna is saying a wise man, he sees a modest Brahmin, a learned Brahmin, a cow, a peasant, a dog, an elephant. They see everything with an equal eye. You know, the book that I am reading, the translation of Bhagavad Gita, this book was bought in Ramana Maharshi's ashram. So at the start of the podcast, I referred to Ramana Maharshi, right? So there are a lot of people who experienced Ramana Maharshi, who spent some time with him. They say that, Ramana Maharshi had few pets in his ashram, and he referred to those pets as though he would refer a human. he wouldn't refer that as a pet. He would literally treat that animal as a person. So you need to see people like this. We need to look around for people like this. Like, there are a lot of great people who have been like this, who have lived life like this, where they have seen everything with an equal eye. You know how you have to be internally to be actually perceiving world like that, where you're seeing everything with an equal eye. Like, there is no good, there is no bad. The way how you're seeing a rich guy, the way how you're seeing a poor guy, you're seeing them with the same eye. Internally you have to be so blissful to actually bring that out, right? Like, when I'm talking about that, it's I don't know, there's something I'm feeling inside. Like, it makes me happy, just imagining me being in a place like that. I'm not saying I'm there. I'm an ignorant soul, but I'm just saying that it's a very beautiful place to be in. Shri Krishna Bhagavan then continues saying, even in this life, those whose mind is equipoised have overcome phenomenal existence. Flawless and uniform is Brahman, hence Brahman are they established. So here Krishna is also giving solution. Even in this life, the life that we are living right now, if our mind has overcome this material existence, if we have mentally given up on all the material possessions, not physically but mentally, if you can just give up on the fruits of the action, and if you can do that in this life, then you would be one with the flawless and uniform Brahman. So you would be with him. The knower of Brahman, established in Brahman, steadfast and clear of mind, neither exalts over a pleasant event nor grieves over an unpleasant event. So this is an extension to what I was saying earlier, right? If you are able to see all living beings with an equal eye, then imagine seeing all experiences in life with an equal eye. If you get a pleasant event, then you're just pleasant. Even if something grieving happens, you're still pleasant. No matter what circumstance you're in, you're the same. That's what Lord Rama was. Lord Rama, he lived as a human being. In certain instances, he became sad. When Sita was taken away, he was sad. In certain instances, he got angry. When he had to kill a lot of demons, he got angry. So he lived like a human being. But one thing that Lord Rama had in him was that no matter what happened, he always stood firmly. When he was made king, when it was announced that Rama would be king, he was like this. When Rama was asked to go to forest, he was like this. So no matter what circumstance was, he was always in a same state. And that's what Krishna is referring here. Knower of Brahman or God realized person would be living life like that. Unattached to the outer contacts, he finds happiness in the self. United with Brahman, he enjoys the eternal bliss. The pleasures of the senses are but sources of a misery. O son of Kunti, says Shri Krishna Bhagavan, having a beginning and an end, a wise man does not delight in them. So, any pleasures that we provide for our senses are the sources of misery. Like Shri Krishna Bhagavan just said it. He said any sources that are giving pleasure to your senses are a source of misery, which has a start and which will come to an end. Of course, right? Like when you're eating a chocolate, when like you want to give pleasure to your taste buds, it has a start and after a point it ends, right? And eating chocolate, gives misery to your body because it's giving you diabetes, sugar. This is a very lame example, but you guys can think of much more profound examples than what I can think. So a wise man is not delighted in them. He's not excited to give pleasure to his senses. He who, even before being set free from this physical body, can resist the force of desire and anger, he is a happy man. So Sri Krishna Bhagavan is saying, even before you set free from this body, meaning even like the time that you're spending in this body. So soul, in the second chapter, Sri Krishna Bhagavan says that, like how we put on new garments and throw away old garments, similarly our soul leaves this body and takes on another body, right? So while the soul is in this body, when your body is being influenced by desire, when your body is like, if you can resist the force of desire, and if you can resist the force of anger, then you are a happy man. Beautiful statement. Is there a better self-help book than Bhagavad Gita? In my opinion, no in caps. Sri Krishna Bhagavan then continues saying that yogi whose happiness is inward, whose joy and whose light are inward, being established in Brahman, attains Brahma Nirvana, merger into Brahman. If material possessions are giving you happiness, then I think it's high time you sit and introspect yourself. Because clearly Sri Krishna Bhagavan is saying that if external things are giving you happy, then they're very short lasting, right? I don't know if short lasting is even a word, but you get what I mean. So if external things are giving us happiness, then they come and they go. But if our happiness is inward, then no one can affect that, right? If you come and yell at me, I won't grieve. If you come and praise me, I won't become happy, because my happiness is not based on external things. It is internal. So if you can do that, then you would reach a place where nirvana, bliss with the Brahman. Those sages attain Brahma Nirvana whose imperfections are destroyed, their sense of duality turned aside, their mind's control, and who seek the well-being of all creatures. Brahma Nirvana lies around those who have freed themselves from anger and desire, who have subdued their minds and have known the self. Being able to seek well-being for all creatures. So they say, Lokha samastha sukhino bhavantu, right? Every being, be happy. For you to internally feel that all the people who have caused you pain, regardless, you want everyone to be happy. The one who has realized God, one who is in eternal bliss, he thinks that way. And Brahma Nirvana is attained by people who have freed themselves from anger and desire. So, who have subdued their senses, meaning they have suppressed their senses, their mind, and they're one with the God. Sri Krishna Bhagavan then continues saying, the sage who intent on liberation, moksha, has overcome desire, fear, anger, who turns away from outer things and sits with gaze fixed between the eyebrows, and with outgoing and incoming breath made equal in the nostrils, is forever free. Krishna, when he says it, it sounds so simple, right? Like, I want to be that. I want to be in that state. He's saying, if you want moksha, if you want liberation, you have to overcome desire. You have to overcome fear and anger. Those two things are very impulsive. So it's very hard to overcome those. If you are able to overcome those, then Please bless me. So, and then sit with your gaze, with your focus between your eyebrows, and then focus on the breath that's going inward and that's coming outward, and then just peacefully sit there. Meditation. At last, Sri Krishna Bhagavan says, knowing me as the enjoyer of sacrifices and austerities, the great Lord of all beings, the friend of all beings, he attains peace. With this beautiful statement, we are going to end chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita series. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure that I get to do this, and I am so lucky to have you listening to this. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.
A Sankarshan Joshi trip.